It's the Sean Widmer Podcast. It's a journal by someone that just really doesn't like to write.
Thanks for tuning in to the Sean Widmer Podcast. Much appreciated. Today we're going to talk about the thing that really grinded my gears in the sports world on social media and just talking around the weekend water coolers. Oh man, it drove me crazy. We've got a fast food story for you. Get ready for savings, baby. I'm here for you for that. And a weekend update of what I did this weekend and a shout out to something that I thought was pretty cool. That's coming up today on the Sean Widmer Podcast. Thank you, first and foremost, to the Patreon members of the Sean Widmer Podcast. Thank you. Over at patreon.com/Sean Widmer Podcast. You can become a member and help support this, keep this going. I really appreciate those of you who are there. We're going to have some Trivia 21 coming out on Tuesday, so a new round of that for Patreon members. I've got another podcast that's just going to be for Patreon coming out this week as well, so you can check that out over there on Patreon. Okay, we go to iTunes or the Apple Podcasts portion of the program. If there's a 5-star review, a new 5-star review up there on Apple Podcasts, we read it to kick off the podcast, but lo and behold, we are still stuck on the 5-star review from early October. We're over a month, like a month and a half, stuck on this one. So that means I have to come up with a shout out. And today, I think the shout out today is going to go, maybe we'll throw in a shout out to ovens. This is a negative shout out. This is a calling out to oven makers. Can we have a setting after 10 o'clock that goes into sort of a silent mode, a half volume mode? There's nothing more difficult than making a frozen pizza incognito late at night, right? There's already the guilt of, am I really doing this? Yeah, I'm throwing in the frozen pizza at 10:30 at night. I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm going to do it. And then waking up your whole house because your oven has decided to chime in on the situation at volume 1,000,000. You never hear, you preheat your oven during the day to make something for dinner. You never hear the preheat beep. But at night, at 11 o'clock, it sounds like a tornado warning throughout the neighborhood. Everyone in the neighborhood knows your oven is ready for the frozen pizza. And then inevitably, everything, if you cook it on a baking tray or you're getting out, even if you're getting out a pizza cutter, everything in the kitchen is working against you. Suddenly the pizza cutter is underneath something else that sounds like a bomb. And when you take it slowly and gently out the drawer, it catches on to another utensil that falls or comes out of the cupboard and hits the ground with a clatter. Like, you cannot make a frozen pizza at night past 10 o'clock incognito. It's truly impossible. So outside of the pizza cutter situation and utensils, oven companies, can we just make a dulled down post 10 o'clock, dad needs to sneak in the kitchen and make something for himself mode that we can activate with a fingerprint or something so you know it's not the kids. It's, dad's just like opening up your phone and the oven agrees, like, okay, dad, this one's for you. Beep, beep, beep. That's all we need. And none of us are waiting. At 10 o'clock, you're not even waiting for your oven to preheat. You hit the oven to 400 degrees and you just put the pizza in. And then you're just guessing that when it's done. And normally you're eating cold pizza, but it's better than nothing. So let's work together, ovens. Okay, this really grinded my gears this weekend in the sports world. I was excited for it. I think a lot of people were excited for it. On Friday night, it was Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. The big boxing match that was supposed to happen this summer got pushed back to this weekend, and it was streaming on Netflix, and it was Friday night, late, super late. I think they advertised for Eastern Standard Time. They advertised that it was an 8 o'clock start time for the whole event, which I think it did start around then, like all the real coverage started around then. And then the fight didn't happen till 11-something. It was late. It was really late out here on the East Coast for that fight. And it was Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. And we have a really bad sports opinion going on right now. And that sports opinion, although it's not by everyone, I get that, it's from the majority, is that we got ripped off with the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul fight. That's a really bad take. So let's run down why that is. Number one, it was a 30-year-old versus a 60-year-old. And we all had hopes and dreams of Mike Tyson defying the odds, defying Father Time, which is, as we've said millions of times, undefeated. Okay? We just decided to look past that this weekend and go, no, a 60-year-old's got a shot against an athletic 30-year-old. Now, that was, the hope. There had to be an expectation in everyone's brain, which apparently there was not, but there had to be this expectation that if it wasn't, right, the odds were in the favor of Father Time. But let's just say the odds were defied. Mike Tyson comes out, throws haymakers, knocks out Jake Paul. It's the greatest thing. We all go nuts. But that is the minority. That is the least likely scenario. Would be awesome, but it's the least likely. So when thinking that, did nobody think, well, in these situations, normally the thing with better odds happens, right? If you're told something has a 10% chance of succeeding, in most walks of life, you go, well, the 90% is probably going to happen. Not on Friday night, apparently. Everyone just assumed this 10% was going to happen, and Mike Tyson showed his booty cheeks off on TV, and then he was going to go knock out Jake Paul. He looked old. He was old. And so in terms of we got ripped off from that side, you didn't. You got exactly what was advertised, a 60-year-old versus a 30-year-old. So please do not complain that you got ripped off just for that reason alone. Number two, you actually got a good fight in the fight before. So if you're talking about getting ripped off overall in the night, that Katie Taylor versus Serrano fight right before Tyson Paul was insane. I'm not a big boxing person, but those gals were just throwing haymakers at each other's faces for 30 minutes, and that's all they did. And Netflix showed off their Zoom cameras on Serrano's eye for about 15 minutes, and it was insane. You could see her brain, and we all got to witness that. That fight was insane. I'm sure boxing people had to love that. That's what you want, right? You want haymakers thrown at people getting punched. There wasn't a knockout, but it seemed like it was close every single round to someone going down. So in terms of boxing, yeah, maybe the Paul Tyson fight wasn't great, but saying you got ripped off on all of this means you just disregarded a really good boxing match moments before the Paul Tyson fight. Now, to be fair, moments before was about a 30, 40-minute window, but I think you know what I'm saying. If you were there for the event, you got to see that. But most importantly to you, we got ripped off, people. You got Netflix for a month, all right? You aren't doing, this isn't like the Tyson, what was it? Tyson Fury versus, let me get the name right, Deontay Wilder fight. Okay, back in 2020. I remember this being a big deal because Tyson Fury was going around on the circuit doing all the interviews, and I was like, oh man, this is a big fight. That fight was $79.99 on ESPN Plus and Fox. You had to pay $79.99 to watch that boxing match, okay? You paid $6.99, $14.99 to watch Mike Tyson, Jake Paul, and get Netflix for a month, at least. So, no, you did not get ripped off. Right now, today, you have access, sports people, to that show Receiver. You could watch Starting Five, the NBA show, the quarterback show from a couple years back. I know they've got a ton of other sports where they cover the athletes. So sports fans have great shows on Netflix to watch. You've got shows like Stranger Things, a show I just talked about last week that we got the 4th episode of season 2 on Saturday. Arcane, you can go check out Arcane. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Cobra Kai, Breaking Bad, Suits, Friday Night Lights, and just by buying the Mike Tyson, Jake Paul fight, you now have access for a month to watch all of the funniest show of all time, Arrested Development. So no, you did not get ripped off. You got a fight, and you got access to an entire streaming service for a fraction of the price that people pay for normal old pay-per-view boxing matches. So shut up about it. You didn't get ripped off. You are being a whiny little baby if that is your take today. 60-year-old versus a 30-year-old, and you just assumed that this was going to be anything other than what it was. I personally enjoyed it. I was there for the spectacle. Excuse me. I assumed that Mike Tyson was going to lose. Kenny and I talked about this on Friday. We went heavy on Jake Paul betting because it seemed obvious. This was funny how this went. So during the day, the odds on Jake Paul were minus 200. This was during the afternoon, Friday afternoon, when Kenny and I made our moves on it. Now, how that works, real quick, for the people who don't know gambling, let's talk about this. He was minus 200, Jake Paul was. So what that means is, and we'll do it with $100 because that's the easy number to do it with. Minus 200 odds. If you bet $200, you would win $100. So you would get your $200 back, and you would get $100 extra dollars if Jake Paul won, and that was your bet. Mike Tyson was, I think he was plus 190 or 195. So what that means, if you bet $100, you get your $100 back if Mike Tyson wins, and you get $195 extra dollars. So that's how the odds work there. But Kenny and I were like, look, if it's $200 to win $100, and this seems like a pretty sure thing, we're in. So we maxed out like the accounts we have on Fliff, our free sports gambling site. I highly recommend it. We maxed out on Jake Paul. Both won. So the odds were there. I think the odds ended at minus 225 for Jake Paul, plus 180 for Tyson. But it was funny because later that night, Dave Portnoy, who's a huge voice in the sports community, internet community, Barstool Sports owner, he made a video saying exactly what Kenny and I were talking about, and not just Kenny and me. It was everyone was talking about this, I think, who was really in on the gambling part. Dave Portnoy put a message out like, go bet this fight. This is an obvious one. And from the time he did that, in the next hour, the line changed from minus 200 to minus 225. And I have a really hard time believing that it was anything other than that video he released that made the odds worse if you were getting on there. Anyways, it was a great gambling night. It was a great one to bet. But I don't even remember where we're at. Where are we at? I was just frustrated. It was a very bad opinion. It's been a very bad opinion by people right now that we got ripped off on Friday night. We did not get ripped off. We got exactly what we wanted. I enjoyed all of it. It's Tyson. He's old. It was fun to see him go out there. You know, if the craziness had happened, we all would have wanted to have been there for it. But it didn't, and what should have happened, happened, and that's fine. You know, now we know. Now we know, because the baddest of them all couldn't get it done. So now I don't need to see this in 10, 15, 20 years. I never need to see this again. We have got it on record. Tyson was the guinea pig for it. Once there's a great old boxer, he doesn't need to fight against 20-year-olds. We've seen it, and the test has been run. Okay, I like to tell everyone about fast food deals when they're out there. McDonald's is coming in strong right now. I did not realize this. McDonald's has a great, first of all, McDonald's has a great $5 value meal going on right now. It is, it's just like the Biggie Box for Wendy's. It must be their counter to that. It's either a McChicken or a McDouble. I believe it's those two options, with a 4-piece nuggets, small fries, and a drink for $5. Great deal. Great deal. I love that deal. I'm assuming that we got ripped off. Squad is already like, well, when I was young, you could get that for $3. Well, it's 2024. Like everything's more expensive. So yeah, of course, you could buy a house for $10,000. Okay, cool, great, awesome. It's $5. So don't compare that to $2,000 when you were buying your food. Compare it to today, because that's how it should work, and it's a great deal. So McDonald's $5 value box is great. But the thing I learned, get the McDonald's app right now, because until December 2nd, 2024, on the McDonald's app once a week, you can get a coupon that's $1 for a 10-piece chicken nugget. Are you kidding me? Now, you couldn't do that back in the day. So, mainly because they didn't have smartphones or the app. But $1 for a 10-piece nugget, I can't find a reason for you to complain about that. I mean, I'm sure someone will find a way to complain about it, but that's a really doggone good deal. Okay, let's wrap the podcast up. Sorry, YouTube people. Sorry, podcast listeners. I don't have the Kelly's What Are You Into sound effect ready for you right now. But this is Kelly's What Are You Into? Friday night, I got to go out, and my buddy Alex is running a tabletop role-playing game. You know I'm into that world. He's running a new campaign in a game that I've never played before. So we'll talk about that in 1 second. But he was trying to find a place to have the game played at. Where are we going to play this game? One of the guys in our group lives in an apartment complex that has one of those common areas you can rent out. If you've lived in an apartment complex, you've probably seen this, where you can, go to an area and it has, you talk to the ownership or whoever it is, the management of the apartment complex, say, look, I got a birthday party coming up. we want to rent this place out. Or there's a really good fight that people are going to complain about all weekend on Friday night. I want to rent this place out and use that room for my friends. So we were thinking about using this space, but instead Alex decided on going to this really cool bar in downtown Lexington called Villianous. And it's a board game bar. And I was kind of skeptical about it. I didn't know. I was wrong. So shout out to Villianous here in Lexington. It's a must-go-to bar for you Lexingtonians. Great date night spot. Now, we went and played a really nerdy role-playing game at one of the tables, but they have every game you can think of there. They've got a great beer menu. It was $10 for 2 beers. Again, the non-inflation people are screaming at me that back in the day they could get 2 beers for $2. And okay, congratulations. Find a time machine and go back there. But today's day and age, $10 for 2 beers is a pretty good price. And they had a good food menu. I'd already eaten, but they had what looked to be a really good food menu. But the place was really cool. It was laid out real well. The decor was wonderful. The vibes were right. And I'm excited to go there with Anna and throw out some cards, play some backgammon, whatever it might be, and do a date night there. Like, it's a really cool spot. So my Keller's What Are You Into is finding a new bar in town. I love a bar or a pizza place. Iron Goat in Spokane had this for a minute. They had a really good selection of games. I don't know if that still exists, but I'm a big fan of having easy tabletop games at your establishment to play. I love it. Cards, cribbage, backgammon, simple stuff. Battleship is a great one. Oh, I love that stuff. So try Whistle Punk in Spokane. Whistle Punk in Spokane. Daniela and Matt had a time where they had a really good selection of games. I think they still do, but go check it out. Whistle Punk is ideal for this. Just a brewery where you can play some cards and have some beers. So Villianous, shout out to you. I love it. Alex brought this new game to our attention. Again, tabletop role-playing game. So he's going to run the game. He's going to weave the story that Brian, Lucas, and me are running through. Okay, he's going to weave the tale. So Brian, Lucas, and I had to make characters for the game. So you make your character that you're going to play. Oh, it's a space game, so it's like, is someone going to be good at flying planes? Right, well, let's nerd out for a second. Are you going to be good with like a knife, or like Star Wars, like a blaster rifle? What are you going to be good with? Well, normally when you make a character in these games, you make it like at home and bring it to the table, and it takes you 20, 30 minutes to make your character, and then you're going. With this game, it was really cool because making your character is a game in and of itself. It's all randomized, and it took us 2 hours. And that sounds like a really long time to be doing that, and it's like, well, that's tedious. It was so fun because they made that part of this game a game. So for you nerds out there like me, I would just check out Traveler. I think it's 2020. It's Mongoose. This game has existed for a very long time. It's changed companies who have made it. Mongoose is the current company that makes the game we're playing. It's the 2022 version. Check it out. If you're at a bookstore, a game store, and you see it, check it out. Look at the book. Look at this character creation. See what I'm talking about. It's crazy. All right, that's what I'm into. Villianous, downtown. Thank you for tuning in to the Sean Widmer podcast. Again, thank you to Patreon members for supporting this, making this possible. I very much appreciate it. Hopefully, your week starts off great.